Hello, hello, hello. What is up? What is up? This is your buddy Alert Wolf here to bring you another movie review. This is a big one, guys. This is Man of Steel. Alright. Superman. S on my chest. What's up? Alright, so I'm going to do this review like I do some of the other reviews where there's a fan base before our movie. So this is what I'm going to say. The first half of my review is going to be a straight up review on the movie as a merits of the movie, and if you're not a Superman or DC Comics fan. However, the second half of this review, and the first half is going to have very few spoilers, nothing more than really the commercials give away. However, the second half of the review is going to be coming from a Superman DC Comics fanboy who I am. So, it's going to be super critical. I'm going to go right into the story. If you haven't seen the movie, don't watch the second half of my review. Go out and see it for yourself. But don't worry, first half of my review is going to get a rating, as if you don't know about Superman. But the second half of my review will have a rating, as if you do. And I get it. I'm going to go all in on everything in this movie. So I am going to give away the plot on the second half. There will be spoilers. I'm going to try not to give away everything, but I'm just going to... If you're not... Like I said, if you haven't seen the movie, don't ruin it for yourself. Don't watch the second half of this review. Still click it up and all that good stuff if you like it and comment with me. And then after you watch the movie, watch the second half of the review. And I'll let you know when that comes. But enough of that. You just go right into it. So, this is a reinterpretation, reimagining of Superman in the movie theater, as opposed from the last movie, Superman Returns, where it was supposed to be somehow in that universe, and that movie hit us with a nostalgia card, where the movie was, out of nostalgia, we really liked the movie until we went home and thought about what we just seen, and then realized how bad of a movie plot-wise it was. This is not that movie, so don't worry, guys. But the movie opens up on Krypton. We get Jor-El, who is awesomely played here, and I dig his the reimagining of Krypton. You know, it's this vibrant world, basically, not a world with a dead world, a world made of crystal or ice, or, you know, this is very much similar to how it was done in the Superman 90s cartoon, you know, and I like that, with creatures and so many different things. This time, you know, the planet's being destroyed because they mine their own core. The way the technology looks, where it's like I'm trying to think of how to describe it, like rising needles. Like you ever had that thing with the needles in it and it has the plastic over it, and you put your hand and it pushes up the metal little needles to make the shape. That type of thing. We get the robot little droids that follow them around, and just like before, we get Jor-El trying to warn them about trying to save the planet. They didn't listen, obviously. They're still not listening. And, you know, they're kind of in denial about it. When General Zod breaks in. Now, if you guys didn't know that this movie was about Zod, then I don't know what to tell you. Because this shouldn't be a spoiler, that this movie is all about Zod. Should not be. Zod is the villain. Shouldn't be a spoiler alert, but I guess if it is, it is. If you had no idea, well, there you go. And you know, Zod's uprising happens just like in the second Superman film or whatever. And you know, during this, Jor-El's trying to have Superman, escape, and he's the first natural born Kryptonian, and all of this. I'm not going to give away too much here because some important stuff does happen other than Superman being evacuated from the planet, leaving in the shuttle, and being sent to Earth. He's being sent to Earth with, instead of the crystal, it's this key thing that's in the shape of like the Superman symbol, and a codex, which is very important to the race of Kryptonians. And I'm not going to get too much into that because I don't want to give away too much here. But Zod gets captured. Him and his crew get sent to the Phantom Zone, just like in the other movie. Although in this one, the Phantom Zone is a little different, and it's differently done. By the way, the armor that the Kryptonians wear is pretty boss. I do like it. I'm not talking about the heavy armor that we see later in the film, but which still looks cool to me. I'm talking about the armor Jor-El wears and Zod wears and all of that is pretty good. And what I like here is they do get into some of the mythos behind some of the different versions of Krypton and the Superman story. So anyway, the planet explodes, boom, just like it's supposed to. Superman lands. Now, in the next scene, we don't have Superman as a child. We have Superman working dangerous catch, and he's working on a shrimp boat, and we see him save people and stuff like that. And he's this bum wandering around the world. He has the beard and everything, and he's just saving the day, Now, what we have in this film is basically, the Flash. Superman has flashbacks of his origin throughout the entire movie, so we don't have to relive him as a kid again. We don't have to relive too much of the Smallville years, considering there was that whole Smallville show, which is good. So it still kept it fresh, but still told the story. Now, this is still an origin movie, however, because Superman's still trying to figure out who he is really. He knows he's an alien, but this is before... you know what this is like in the original Superman movie? Do you remember there was that gap from when he left home and when he created the Fortress of Solitude and talked to Jor-El and understand his destiny as Superman? Now, in the original motion picture, that happened all in 15 minutes of the film. However, this is basically the movie. This is basically the whole beginning of the movie, and the whole concept behind it is taking that concept from that movie and expanding it into a different motion picture. I think that's where the idea came from. And so, in this picture, and in this story, it is an origin story of Superman, but not from the point of when he's a child, although we do get those moments of his childhood as flashbacks, but at the moment where he's in that walkabout phase of his existence, trying to figure out who he is. And, just as he's learning the history of, and I'm not going to give away what happens, of what happened, of how exactly this happens in the movie, but, he that same moment does occur where he understands his destiny and he does don the suit. Now, let me talk about the suit. The suit is like an adaptation from the current suit in the comics. Now, let me say this for those new 52 fans that I know this is not supposed to be the too comic booky thing, but I guess I could go into on the suit. I'm not a fan of how it's done in the comic books currently. However, this adaptation suit, which is similar but different, I really liked. I didn't like the suit in the previous movie. I do like the suit in this movie, but for the love of God, guys, please put the f***ing yellow S. I've said this on several different things back on the chest. I mean, this yellow S, see, Superman looks good, dark colors, yet he still looks like freaking Superman. Yellow S, whatever. However, I do, like I said, I did like the way the suit looked, and you know, the only thing I thought, the suit was a little too dark, a little too drab. You know, I know you guys have seen it. He has the red boots. I love the red cape. The red cape is the color. The dark blue, I think, looks really good. The red S could be brighter. At least try to match it up more to the red of the cape. The same thing with the red boots, are very dark like the red S, but could be brighter. And the yellow in the S could have been a little brighter. I thought a little, not too much brighter, but just a smidgen brighter to brighten it up. I thought would have looked a little better, but it still totally worked. However, I want the freaking yellow S on the back of the cape back, and they could have tossed in the red shorts, maybe not as obviously underwear over his costume, but a splash of red by there, maybe as like an armored section, would have been cool. I think, just to spruce up how it looked. But I'm nitpicking. The suit I thought was cool. And so the basic plot is Zod comes in search of Kal-El, basically for something his father left him. It's called the Codex. I'm not going to get into what it is. You have to watch the movie for that. And you know, he has to save the day, and the world is learning about Superman at the same time this is happening. So it's very interesting. And you know, he has to prove to them that he's the guy. Now, the fights in this movie are epic, awesome. People who've been waiting to see Superman tear into, now that we have the technology and the special effects, to see him tear into some villains. Finally, it's not a Lex Luthor villain or a cerebral villain. Finally, Superman gets to go in on a villain, and he does. And oh man, does he. And the fights get better and better. There are some subtle things put into this movie. Very subtle things. Those of you who've seen Superman 2, there is a fight scene in a construction yard, or not a construction yard, on a building that looks eerily similar to a certain part of the fight in Superman 2 when he fought the trio. There's even a little joke, if you guys catch it, where Superman gets knocked to the side, and you know, how many days since accident, and he hits the sign, and it's down to 0. But it's so fast and so subtle that if you blinked, you missed it. They didn't even focus on it. It was just there in the background. Okay. Now, so what am I going to give this film? I'm going to give this film a... Well, let's just go over it. The action was amazing. The fights, epic. The end of the movie, awesome. Or the reimagining of Krypton and the set was great. And the Kryptonian technology I loved. The acting in the movie was pretty good, actually. I would say all the performances were subtle. Now, as a movie goer, going to see a superhero sci-fi action film, not as a fan of the franchise, this is how I rate the film. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. A 4 out of 5. It feels big. It was pretty well done. There was a lot of subtlety in this movie and subtext between religion and evolution. I mean, not enough to bash you in the face with it, but it was there. You know, the greater question of who am I and why am I here is pretty much why those things were all in play, and that general theme is part of the movie. Rising up and doing what's right, you know. So even though it had its great action, it also had its moments of intellectualism mixed in there, but not enough that at any point in the movie you feel like you're being preached at and you're being bashed in the face with it. Never does that happen. You never get that hokey or corny feeling. And it is a more modern take on Superman than anything previous. But again, if you're not a Superman guy, or you've never even seen any of the other pictures, and just as a straight movie. So again, 4 out of 5, guys. And well worth seeing. I saw it in 3D. The 3D is good, but check your ticket prices, because I shopped around and I ended up spending like way too much money. And I didn't realize that the other theaters, who were part of the same Regal chain I might have, were all cheaper than the closest one to me. So, like I said, never pay full price on your movies. Now, this ends the portion of the review for the average moviegoer. Now begins the portion of the review for the rabid Superman fan. And warning, spoilers, huge spoilers. Like, I tried not to give up too much, and that now begins. So again, guys, if you haven't seen Superman, it's time to stop the video, click it up because you like the video, because I warned you, comment and subscribe. But if you have seen it, woo, let's move forward. Now, I'm gonna get into some of the things I didn't necessarily like. Some of the criticisms you hear about this movie is that this Superman didn't have the heart of, say, a Christopher Reeve Superman. Now, that's not the actor's fault. There is an important element to the character of Superman that is completely missing from this movie. And that element is Clark Kent is not in this movie. And I know what you can say. Hold on, Alert Wolf. But the movie Superman, Man of Steel, Superman, he's all over the movie. No, he's not. Superman's all over the movie. And this is what I mean. Although he's not, I'm not saying he's running around in the suit all the time. He's still Superman the entire time. He's still that same persona the entire time. See, Superman has Clark Kent to play. And Clark Kent is him, trying to blend in and be that guy. And it does happen in this movie, but not really, because he never once is he's never once Clark in this movie at all. As a matter of fact, this movie has nothing to do with Clark Kent as a character, as a separate side of Superman. You never really get to see. What you do get to see, the separate side, is in his flashbacks. When he's a kid, those are Clark Kent moments sometimes. But from when he's an adult on, those are Superman moments. And he's Superman the entire time, pretty much, you know what I mean? And it's just, he's just less confused. So, and there's something else. Because there was no Clark Kent in this movie, and there was scenes with Perry, he's black in this movie. That just threw me for a little loop, but I love Lawrence Fishburne, so, him being Perry, I'm fine with it. He had some gravitas to the role. But here's the thing. As Superman fans, we care that Perry White lives. If you didn't know, if you're not a Superman fan and you just, it was like, this is your first big exposure to Superman, or you know who he is, but maybe you don't know the subtleties of like who he works for and all that, and that he's a reporter. You just, Clark Kent and Superman and Lois Lane, and the generality, but not the specifics. The fact that Clark isn't a reporter in this, Clark isn't in the movie, so it just makes you like there's a climactic moment of is Perry and them gonna make it, and we're supposed to care, but again, the Clark not in this picture, the relationship with, it's just really not formed well. I mean, so you don't care as much as you should if you weren't really a fan. But as a fan, you obviously care, and you want, you don't want Perry to die. And Lawrence Fishburne is such a big enough actor that even if you weren't aware how important Perry is to the whole mythology, his presence alone made you want him to live. So they kind of saved themselves on it. But let me get to the deeper point of Clark Kent and the role Clark is to Superman. You see, parts of the seeds of what will eventually become Clark Kent are in this movie, whereas when Superman does hold back and he goes the route, he doesn't really fight back the people that bully him. Now, why people try to bully him, as a kid I get it, but as an adult, when there is a scene with that, and the guy who picks a fight with him is like half Superman size, and because he's just trying not to fight back or whatever, you know what I mean? He's still a big, massive dude. Like, he's a big dude. Like, I wouldn't pick a fight with Clark Kent. Like, Clark Kent's a big dude. Like, even if he seems like he's not gonna punch you in the face, and you had no idea he was a Kryptonian, if he punched you in the face, you're probably going down. Because he's massive. Well, whatever. So I mean, the importance of Clark. Look. In the original Superman movies, Christopher Reeve was very good at playing Clark Kent. And Clark Kent was a believable enough, clumsy, goofy guy with a heart of gold who wrote really good stories that you believed Clark Kent was real. That it was so believable that he was a real guy that Lois, who has daily interactions with both personas, although she has some suspicions that he's Superman by Superman 2, she can't, it's not obvious because Clark is so convincing that that's not Superman. That it's not obvious, that people that are trained to observe have problems figuring it out. In this movie, however, Lois Lane immediately figures out who Superman is. It didn't take her long to find him. And I'm not going to get into the specifics, but she does. Because he's not Clark Kent in this movie, so there's no Clark Kent shield. I mean, another example would be All-Star Superman. That Clark Kent, which was an homage to how Christopher Reeve played it, was so convincing that even when he told Lois and disrobed, no, she couldn't believe he was Clark Kent. She still didn't. Even when Lex Luthor saw Clark Kent transform into Superman, he's like, "Oh, you were posing as Kent." He didn't believe, and this was Lex Luthor watching him do it. Didn't believe that he was Superman. To the point where Lex actually likes Clark, and he hates Superman. He likes Clark because he feels Clark is the most human example of being human. He hates Superman because he's inhuman. Do you get how important Clark is? And he wasn't in this picture. Okay, that aside, I've gone too far into it. That and the thing with killing Jonathan Kent. Listen, guys, he only died in the movie, and in the comic books every once in a blue moon, but he comes back. The point I'm making is Superman lost his real parents. His adoptive parents stayed on for a long-ass time to raise him. That's all I'm saying. And the way he died in this movie was retarded. I am sorry, it was just stupid. I wouldn't have allowed it to happen, but whatever. Moving on, they had to kill him, and it had to mean something, and it did. And I get it, and it helped shape the Superman character, so I'm fine with it. But the second thing that made no sense in this film was at one point the big thing Superman had to stop is, and they foreshadow and talked about that he had this ability the entire time, is he had a terraforming machine from Krypton's past, and he was going to terraform the Earth to make way for the rebirth of to turn Earth into new Krypton, basically. Now, the problem I have with this, I am fine with the motivation of killing all the humans on the planet. I get that. That's fine. I understand. Whatever. Zod's cleaning house. Is the reason for terraforming is what I find to be just retarded. First off, even if you had no idea, you would gain retardedly supernatural, like you would be nearly invincible on Earth. Even if you didn't know that, you know two things. One, Clark was sent there as a baby, so you know Kryptonians can exist on this planet already. You terraform a planet to make it so that species can survive in it. But they know a baby Kryptonian grew up there, so there was no issues there. Second, a ship, which is an ancient scout ship that he used, was the accidental trigger that alerted him to him there. So, we also know that his ancestors never deemed it worthy to terraform the Earth because they were fine on that planet. You get what I'm trying to say here? There is zero reason for terraforming the Earth. And it's as a method of making your species prosper there. It doesn't matter. Now, the other problem I had was there was a tiny sentence by Lois, like, if it's making it like your planet, which is supposed to have a double the gravity or something, a higher gravity content than Earth, wouldn't that make you weaker? And we got, this comes from a moment in the ship where they said Clark had to get used to Kryptonian atmosphere, and he puked a little blood, but his body did adapt, and they somehow, because the environment was like Krypton, neutralized his powers slightly. Now his powers come from the yellow sun, and yes, the gravity is stronger on Krypton. However, even if you increase the gravity on Earth, Superman, because he's still in the environment of a yellow sun, would still be Superman. It would just take him a little bit more effort to do things, but he'd still be Superman. So I have a little problem with that scenario. But it wasn't a big deal, actually, because the movie did resolve that issue on its own, and it sided with me on that one. But what I'm saying is, it really doesn't make any sense to terraform the Earth. It really doesn't, and it's flimsy. Again, for the reason of killing everybody on the planet, but they had guns and ships, and they're like, 10 or 12 Supermen on that. And the other thing is, on the ship, they nullified their own powers. Why would you do that? Is beyond me. But I don't know if I would want everybody to be mortal. You kept having that sense like they wanted to be mortal, but they were in a place that made them immortal, basically. But whatever. Again, the terraforming thing is the big bug I had. That and Clark not being here, and Lois finding out right away about. Now Clark does make a cameo, but. You know what? I'm not even going to get into it. But Clark is basically not in this picture. So Clark is not in this picture was my one problem. Lois finding out too easily as a result, which makes sense. And the whole apparatus of terraforming the Earth to help build the new Krypton, I feel is kind of stupid. But for killing all humans, I get it, but you know, it's just that's the problem I have with it. Now, even with these issues that I've gone in on, the movie was still awesome. I'm sorry. I am still the same guy that reviewed the earlier half of this movie. I am just going in on the stuff that I had problems with the film, but it was still freaking amazing to see Superman kick ass. And I mean kick ass. The fights were incredible. I mean, the only thing wrong with some of the fights that went crazy is Superman really didn't try to move some of these fights into areas that were less populated. And I did get Injustice God Among Us feel throughout this film in some of the fights. You know, I got that Mortal Kombat feel. That's pretty epic, you know? And it felt like that game, you know? And between some of the Superman fights and some of the locations and the scenery, it was so good. So good. So even though I'm super critical on these 2 points, Clark thing and the fact that the terraforming, to me, I couldn't buy it, you know? That, I just didn't get it. It just didn't work for me. The rest, however, of the concept behind the movie and the fight and everything was just so good. So even with all these flaws, as a comic book fan, I am going to give the movie the same rating. It is a 4 out of 5. It would have been a 5 out of 5 had they not messed those 2 issues up, in my opinion. But because of those things, they get knocked down a half point each. 4 out of 5. I give the whole movie experience a 4 out of 5. It is awesome. It is amazing. I have talked way too much about this movie. I am sorry this review is so long. And I you know, I'm done. I am done. So click it up if you like it, comment if you must, and please, please, please subscribe if you can. And this is your buddy, alertwolf, signing off.